Sir Kannan Gopalakrishnan. He was working as a senior architect at Engineering Design Research Centre, L&T Construction, India's largest construction company. He's also worked on projects ranging from institutional buildings to international airports, apartment complexes to aircraft hangars. He's also attended 3 international conferences and 2 national conferences, and has also presented technical papers at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, and the MSRIT, Bangalore. He's also won the national championship at Archaman at the India's largest architecture quiz. Sir Kannan Gopalakrishnan currently runs a design firm, Habitat Design Studio, and he is also a visiting faculty at the renowned architecture schools in Tamil Nadu.
Welcome back to UGC lecture series. This is AR 6006, Structure and Architecture. We will be dealing with units 3 and 4 from this lecture onwards, which is Contemporary Structural Expression through Case Studies. This is lecture number 10, and we are going to look at some case examples in this series. If you remember the previous episode, we saw the contributions of architect Richard Buckminster Fuller and his structural design ideas, how he integrated his concept of complex structural calculations and complex ideas of tensegrity structures, Dymaxion structures into his buildings. Now we will be looking at individual case studies of certain buildings, and from which we will be trying to understand the process of architecture and the contribution of structure in the process of designing. So, let us get into this episode's buildings, which are B3 offices in Stockley Park and Sainsbury Centre for Visual Art. So, we'll straight away get into B3 offices, Stockley Park. The first look of the building, this is how it looks. And if I am going to tell you that this is an office building, many of you might reject the whole idea in the first place, because the first thing that will pop up in our minds is denial. No, this cannot be an office. This looks like a factory building. This looks like say a warehouse, an industry, not an office building. But yes, that is where architect Norman Foster has broken all the traditional values of an office, and he has tried to create a new kind of an office system where it looks and feels not in 1 ounce an office. Let us look at the building in detail. Stockley Park was Britain's first architecturally driven business park, master planned in the 1980s on a site strategically located close to the Heathrow Airport and within 40 minutes drive of central London. This includes buildings designed by leading British architects. The idea of improving the workplace, either by providing better amenities or by eliminating barriers between the management and the workforce, was seen as unnecessary, if not subversive. Traditionally, it has always been in the idea that an industry need not be very comfortable to the workmen. The office space need not be very comfortable to the work people. Office needs to be comfortable only as much as it needs to be, so that the productivity goes up. People were very happy with that kind of model. They were not very happy with removing the barriers between the management and the employees. But this project at this particular point of time eliminated all those barriers. The first thing that they decided was the barrier between the management and the workforce must be dissolved. Next thing that they decided was to provide better amenities and to improve the ambience of the workplace in general. Stockley Park demonstrated just how radically ideas had changed over the intervening 20 years. This is another look at the building. Now, if you see here, it's the same roof structure, and look at the interlacing of glass and steel structural members. Look at how much of visual output the architect is trying to provide from the building. The entire view of the exterior is thrown into the interior, and the interior is completely bathed with the light. of the exterior. Set at the southern end of a site overlooking a lake, this building provides 12,000 square meters of office space and was designed to house a single tenant, but can be subdivided to suit multiple occupancy too. The formal design had to fit within certain aesthetic parameters set by Stockley Park's management, which specified pitched roofs, white cladding, and sunscreening. As a result, each of the building's 3 stepped bays are fronted by V-shaped steel butterfly frames pinned at the ridges, supported on tapering columns. Here, if we see that the management themselves have given specification for 3 important things. If we see what are the 3 things, they had given certain aesthetic rules for designing the building. They had specified pitched roofs, white cladding, and sunscreening. Remember, pitched roofs, white cladding, sunscreening, all that you see in the building. You see pitched roofs, you see white cladding, and you see sunscreening, all in the building. But traditionally, what Stockley Park management meant was for a very, very traditional structure, but what Norman Foster has designed for them is completely different, but within the purview, within the same constraints that the Stockley Park management had provided them. The frames support the roof over each 3-story bay and extend 3 meters over the long elevations to support louvered sunscreens. Between the bays, 2 triple height atria run the length of the building and carry the primary circulation. Oriented to maximize views across the lake to the east, the main entrance to the building is located in the middle of the 3 halls on the northern facade, shaded by an overhanging canopy. Plant and services are stacked at the southern side of the building, where they block the heat of the sun. On the front is the lake that they were talking about. The long east and west elevations are made up of double glazed units. To reduce solar gain, the internal face of the units is stuve enamel with white fritz, using technology transferred from the automotive industry, which vary in concentration from almost opaque at the floor level to clear at the seated eye level, thus maintaining visual contact with the gardens. The usage of white fritz is clearly seen in this picture. If you see in this picture, at the bottom, at the ground level, it is opaque, and near the eye level, it is almost transparent, and it goes back to being opaque again. Here, there is a floor slab of the next floor, and from on the top again, the bottom portion is opaque, and it goes to become transparent at the eye level, where people can look at the outside of the building from the inside, and then it becomes opaque again. So, the process repeats for all the 3 stories, and this is a concept which Norman Foster has taken from the automotive industry, and he has tried to connect that with the architecture, with the building industry. Look at how concept can be transferred from one field to another field. This is creativity. If you don't have the knowledge of the automotive industry, Fritz, we will never be able to design such kind of a thing into architecture. So, the cross pollination of ideas between 2 fields is what modern day creativity is, which Foster has achieved really, really brilliantly in this building. These are some of the drawings which there are atria which they were talking about. This is the atria, and these maintain the primary circulation paths. This is a section across the building. At Stockley Park, what could have been a highly restrictive developer's brief in Foster's hands becomes a starting point for elegant, innovative architecture. Because if we see the developer's brief earlier, they had specified 3 very, very clear things. They had specified pitched roofs, they had specified white cladding, they had specified sunscreens, and with this kind of a brief, with a lot of other restrictions too, any architect would have struggled really hard to get a good composition. But Norman Foster does it effortlessly, and he gets all the right things out of the brief. In Foster's hands, the developer's brief becomes a boon, not a bane. Stockley Park B3 is a masterpiece of modern architectural ingenuity. Nothing in it is wasted, nothing is ugly, yet everything is new. If you want to see an English building that can stand up to Wasprung Dutch technique, this is it. Some other views of Stockley Park. This time we are looking at the building from the interior to the exterior. The amount of glass which is used in the building is noteworthy because this is the amount of view that Foster is allowing the people inside the buildings to enjoy. This is the amount of light that Foster is allowing the building to get from the exterior. Look at the sharp angles, right angle turn, the perfect way in which the members meet at the junctions. This is Norman Foster at his best. Now let us look at the next building in this segment, which is the Sainsbury Centre for Visual Art. This is a building that is a genius in the making. If you wanted to know what Sainsbury Centre for Visual Art looked like, this is how the building looks like. An extra large portal frame with a huge glass facade on one side with a completely blank wall faces on either sides except for a few door openings here and there. This was Sainsbury Centre for Visual Art. With the donation in 1973 of their collection of ethnographic and 20th century art to the University of East Anglia, together with an endowment for a new building, Sir Robert and Lady Sainsbury sought to establish the Sainsbury Centre as an academic and social focus within the campus. The Sainsburys shared a belief that the study of art should not be formal but a pleasurable experience, not bound by traditional enclosure of object and the viewer. A few places of work, the interiors of the building. Again, in this building too, look at the amount of glass which Foster is using here and the volume of light which he is allowing to the interior. As a result of the Sainsbury Centre, is much more than a conventional gallery where the emphasis is on art in isolation. Instead, it integrates a number of related activities within a single light-filled space. Usually, art galleries are made in such a way that there is this big box and there are individual pieces of art lined up along the walls, properly lit, put some light on the objects, and there is a place where the viewer must stand and look at the piece of art and must enjoy the art. Foster broke this conventional way of looking at art galleries. He says that the emphasis is on art in isolation. It is not the same here. Here art is not isolated. Here it integrates related activities in one large light-filled space. The building brought a new level of refinement to the practice's early explorations into lightweight, flexible enclosures. Norman Foster and partners were experimenting with lightweight, flexible enclosure systems for a long time now, and they have been experimenting about this kind of a system for a very long time, and this is one such experiment which has turned out into a very successful project. So they have brought a new level of refinement to their study. Structural and service elements are contained within the double layer walls and roof. You see the double layer wall and roof. So all the structural and service systems are completely contained within this. to give a very clear space for the activity in itself. Nothing related to structure or services will ever disturb the function in this project. So, if you see here, one big space which is completely available for art, all your service installations, structural elements, everything goes inside this. This entire space is column free and without any disturbance of any structural or service elements. Within this shell is a sequence of spaces that incorporates galleries, a reception area, the Faculty of Fine Art, senior common room and a restaurant. Full height windows at each end open the space up to the surrounding landscape, while louvers line the interior to provide a highly flexible system for the control of natural and artificial light. Large enough to display Sainsbury's extraordinary collection, yet designed to be intimate and inviting, the main gallery or the living area evokes the spirit of the collection's originally domestic setting. Sainsbury was a very passionate collector. He doesn't call himself a collector yet. He calls himself a passionate person who seeks to gather objects, simple. And initially the whole museum was in his residence, in his own place, and he wanted to convert the whole setup into a much bigger building, and hence the Sainsbury Centre was born. The essence of the Sainsbury Centre is the fact that the whole visual art elements were all represented in his house. So, this Sainsbury Centre designed by Foster incorporates the same substance, because he calls the main gallery as living area, and that is where all his items, all the collections, everything are kept. So, even though it is large enough to display the extraordinary collection which he had, the scale is also a very intimate scale, which is the requirement of any passionate collector. There it is, the building, you can see its reflection in the background of a night sky. A new gift from the Sainsburys in 1988 allowed the building to be extended to provide space for the display of the reserve collection, together with curatorial and conservation facilities and a space for exhibitions and conferences, giving the centre greater flexibility in its programming. The new wing extends the building below ground level, exploiting the contours of the site to emerge in the form of a glazed crescent incised in the landscape. The original building was already there. The new extension to the Sainsbury Centre was required because they had a lot of reserve collection which could not be put in the main Sainsbury Centre. So, they added an extension to the building. Instead of extending it on the sides of the plot, instead they decided to go deeper underground, and on the underground level they designed the additional centre. The site was a contour site. There were beautiful incisions which happened on the landscape, thereby creating a wonderful landscape element which exploits the contour of the site and which gives the best design for the given site. There it is, the Sainsbury Centre, the lake in the front, and the way you go inside for the newer later addition, and a close-up look at the structural system of the Sainsbury Centre is on the bottom right corner over here. In 2006, a further program of improvements was completed which provides an internal link between the main and the crescent wing galleries. A new education centre, additional display spaces, an improved shop, a cafe, and other visitor amenities. These were added in addition to the original program requirement. Moving on to the interiors of the space, The space has display areas with a few seating here and there. People can sit, discuss, watch, and they can also work. Here, look at the simple way in which Foster had detailed the interiors. Simple furniture, nothing but art takes our attention, nothing but the displays take our attention from any visitor, which is the primary for any art gallery. Other sections of the Sainsbury Center, wherein here the section across the building, we can clearly see the portal frames running here. You can see the structural systems, and we can see all the services that are running through it. You can see the air conditioned systems. You can see all the other services systems running through the middle of these frames, and this grand spiral staircase that goes all the way to the basement, to the newer addition, giving a complete column free and services free space for the visual art center itself. Here some of the sketches, conceptual sketches, which were designed by Norman Foster, wherein you can see the structural system on the side, wherein he has conceptually sketched the structural system out, and he has also sketched a few pipelines here and there to just to indicate to us that all the services and everything will go in here. And here the art form is located with views through the landscape. He has given one full thing with glass on either side because he wanted us to see the landscape through the building. Norman Foster says this about his building: given the brief, you could have produced separate pavilions, assuming a strong link between the collection in terms of works of art and a school teaching the history of art. You could fuse these two elements together, add to that a restaurant, a senior common room, and a special exhibition pavilion, and you have the potential total of 4 buildings. On the other hand, you could make the leap and say that the linkage between all those elements was so strong that the case for making one building form was overwhelming. This is what Norman Foster says. Even though he had the potential of building 4 separate structures, 4 separate pavilions, produce a series of structures on the site, he denied that instinct and he developed one big building that has all the functions. Scale models of the building on the top. You see how the portal frames working here, and there are a couple of pictures which are taken during construction. Norman Foster also says about this project: I said that I was interested as a spectator in seeing works of art. I was not really interested in catalogues, though I enjoyed them in their own right. I was unhappy in a building that was monumental or pompous. I felt that the experience was all important. The building should be a nice place to be in. It seemed that a certain common cause emerged as the discussions proceeded. Some more photographs during the phase of construction. This is where they are laying the roof, doing the cladding system on the exterior, paneling on the top, and the final panel goes on top. Graham Vickers says that the louvers become translucent, celebrating the openness and lightness of the trusses and allowing views up and through the length of the roof. The effect is one of remarkable finesse. The layers of louvre truss structure, catwalk grille, and balustrade combining to create weightless architectural abstractions, constantly changing and suffused by daylight. Sir Robert Sainsbury himself, the owner of the Sainsbury Centre for Visual Art, the person who commissioned the project, says that it is certainly true that Norman's building has aroused extraordinary passions among architects, writers, and art historians. My personal prize goes to the description of the building as a fetishist expressionism. Here is a long list of awards which this building has received: LABC East Anglia Building Quality Award, Museum of the Year Award, Ambrose Congreve Award, 6th International Prize for Architecture Brussels, British Tourist Board Award, R.S. Reynolds Memorial Award, Structural Steel Feneston Award, Royal Institute of British Architects Award, and lot more. At the end of the lecture, we should be able to understand the contemporary structural expressions in the buildings, understanding the form and function, expression, language, and structural exemplification. We will also understand the works of Norman Foster as a master architect. With the learning that we have amassed in this lecture, we should be able to answer the following questions that are going to appear on your screen right now. Explain the significance of B3 offices in Stockley Park and explain how it revolutionized the industrial expression in terms of architecture. Explain how the Sainsbury Centre for Visual Art acts as a medium through which Foster explains his concept of complex structural and architectural understanding. This is the first lecture of Units 3 and 4, and I look forward to meeting you with more such case studies on the next episodes. Thank you.